No, I think it's our first conversation for sure.
Yeah.
Um, let's talk founders medals, why don't we? Congratulations on being up more than 100% year to date. One of the best performing juniors on the TSX venture.
Yeah. No, thanks. It's been an exciting year. It's been an exciting couple of years, actually. I think it was exactly 2 years ago today, I started as CEO of Founders. So
Is this your first gig as a CEO?
first time as CEO. Yeah.
Wow, that is lucky. You are a lucky guy.
Yeah.
It's not often the first CEO gig does well out of the gate. It usually takes a couple failures before somebody, gets the hang of it and gets some luck on their side. But fantastic project. So tell us about the Antino project and how founders acquired the option on Antino and sort of how the deal came together.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I mean, this is November 2022 is when I did the first site visit down there. So, I first introduced the project probably a couple of months before that, but really got connected to the guys behind Augur Mining, the people who had the option agreement on it before us, or who we acquired it from. And I was really just looking to chat with somebody down there about the jurisdiction as a whole. French Guiana, English Guiana, or Suriname in the middle there, and understand what it looked like to work down there. It was a jurisdiction that our larger group was interested in. And it just so happened that they had this project, and given some of the difficulties they were having with Montagne d'Or at the time, they were, potentially willing to sell it. And, right out of the gate, I mean, you see some of the numbers from the historic work, you see the scale of the augur anomalies, and all of that had been put together by them. And so it was just seemed like something we really wanted to pursue. And it kind of went from there. So that's how I came on as CEO, actually, was kind of going through the motions, negotiating that transaction, the assignment, and then came on as CEO with the project coming in.
For people who don't know the country very well, tell us about the country where Antino is located. It's sort of one of the more obscure countries on the northern edge of South America.
Yeah, we're kind of right up there in the northeast corner. 650,000 people. It's 400 by 400 kilometers. Pretty small place. Like Guyana, its neighbor, has recently had some big investments from Total in Suriname's case for offshore oil and gas. But it's a gold focused or mining focused economy in general. I mean, a huge portion of their exports on an annual basis are gold and gold related products. Two major mines operate in the country. You've got Zijin, who recently acquired the Rosebell mine from most recently I Am Gold, and then Newmont has the Marion mine, and that's 20 plus years of active large scale industrial gold mining. So it's been a great jurisdiction, honestly, and I think our ability to get things done quickly this certainly demonstrates that from a logistics standpoint you can move quickly on the ground, and I think that it's a really important thing in this space to be able to get a lot done.
Yeah, there's great access to site. Like I noticed that through going through the presentation and some of the videos you guys have up on YouTube. By the way, a very very underfollowed channel on the founders metals account for a stock that's been basically a 10x the last couple of years. More people should be on your YouTube channel. So it's a transformational last few months for the company. I mean, that's quite clear. Back in June, you were under $2 a share. Still very, you're doing very well back in June. But since then, the share price has doubled. You've got a major gold mining company now as a shareholder. As of a couple of weeks ago, you just closed a $20 million financing. So suddenly you go from having maybe 4 or 5 million in the treasury. Now you've got over 30 million, I would guess. What is the cause of this profound, transformation in the company in the last few months?
I mean, it's been a few things. I think it probably started even earlier this year, just adding to the management team. that's certainly, given us the capacity, I think, to do a lot more and get out and talk to a lot more people, as well as just building the team on the ground. I mean, we've, right from day one had a fantastic technical team. Our chief geologist, Vincent Combs, did his PhD on the Yao deposit across the river. I mean, it doesn't get any better than that for a junior starting kind of fresh on a project. But the overall kind of evolution of it is, it's really just kind of built from the team part. And so, sorry, what was the final piece that you're looking for there?
Well, I mean, I guess, how did you attract the investment? In the last, month, I guess.
Sorry, yeah. So, I mean, as far as the growth goes, it's really been just a series of steps along the way. I mean, on the project side, we had very early this year, we started hitting these things in the step outs at Upper Antino, the Froyo Zone stuff. So that started to really show that there's a lot more scale here than even what some of the historic stuff maybe suggested. That on top of the work that we were doing at Buese and then these most recent drill results, all of that started to give the larger market a sense of what this can potentially turn into. There's a lot of gold out there, and there's lots of drilling to do for sure. But I think once people started to pick up on that, and then we had some big names come in. I mean, right out of the gate, we had Rob Colin with Dynamic Funds, or 1832. He's been a big supporter and stayed in the story all the way along. After Blackrock came in May, I think when that came public, people start seeing names like
Blackrock, you mean the fund manager, like the largest one in the world?
Yes. Yeah. They came in for a 9.9 position in May. It was a $10 million check back then.
I didn't even know that they invested in junior mining. Wow. Okay.
I think that at our scale, they maybe don't, unless they, previously know management, etc. But I think we just had one of those stories, and there were already a few big names in there, but I think we've had that. We've seen that a few times. Like Bank of Montreal came in and led our bought deal financing last November. And, at that time, when we first met them, I think we were probably maybe $55-60 million market cap. And, that's way down market for a big bank. We went to their conference in February, and we're definitely the smallest company there. No question. But that kind of exposure and just people kind of coming down market has been a bit of a theme. Being interested enough in the story and the results we've been putting out that, they've been willing to kind of take that risk outside of maybe their normal operating.
So basically, half of the shareholder base is institutional. I mean, is that right?
Yes, definitely at this point.
That's unusual to see in the junior mining sector as well. Normally it might be 10, maybe 20%, but not 50%. Look, the obvious answer is the results have been exceptional. High grade gold over wide intervals. That's the secret sauce to the share price going to $4 and attracting all that capital to come in. But, are there any other tricks that you used in the last couple of years to keep such a tight share structure for the amount of money that Founders has raised, the amount of holes you put into the ground, to still have the share count less than 100 million is pretty impressive?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if tricks is the right word, but I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, you said it. What matters is that, we've consistently been able to put out, fantastic drill results. And so as long as the gold keeps showing up, with the drill bit, the rest kind of sorts itself out. And I mean, timing has worked in our favor. There's been some market shifts in the right direction in terms of the gold space. You can see it from our chart. It's very much a stair step thing. So it's really been result based, but in a macro environment that's helped it along as well. We didn't take a lot of money off the table in some of those early raises. We were fortunate enough to meet the kind of the right people as far as strategic investors go, or be able to do a smaller and a tighter financing like the bought deal in November. All of that's let us kind of just keep enough dollars to get to the next stage of things. And the results, we've been pretty confident in the results we'd be able to provide from very early on. And so we were comfortable enough, or I was comfortable enough, keeping the treasury kind of where it was until this point. We're at a scale now with 3 drills turning, etc. That and soon 4 that need a few more dollars in there and a bit bigger base to really take this to the next step from here.
Yeah. So it was having the good results pretty much straight out of the gate a couple of years ago that allowed you to raise capital at higher and higher share prices. And you've been able to continue that trend of good results at Antino. The Froyo Zone, really quite exceptional results from Froyo in the last year, including 5.37 grams per ton over 46 meters. That's an absolutely exceptional gold intercept. 10.9 grams over 13 meters. And, I could go on. It looks like Froyo has the goods here. One thing I noticed is there's no timeline to a resource or a PEA or anything in your presentation. Seems like you've got a lot of wide open country to still test and make new discoveries. So just tell us what you're thinking there in terms of the scale of the gold zones here at Antino. Like, how big could this thing be?
I mean, yeah, I can. In terms of scale, I really do think at this point at Antino that we've, and this is certainly mirrored in a number of the analyst reports that have come out recently, that we have that 5 to 10 million ounce potential here at Antino. You've seen kind of the results that have come out of Upper Antino, and subsequently Buese as well. We had 20 meters of 7.5 grams, inside 78 meters of 2.35. And that was product of only our first 12 drill holes down there. There's a lot of gold around, basically. So, and based on some of the augur anomaly stuff, we're now down drilling at Lower Antino and really liking what we're seeing there. And, it starts to tell us that, where we're seeing these big augur anomalies, there's a good chance that there's, something underneath them. And there's still quite a lot of property that we've barely even scratched the surface on. Even further to the east, we've got all of the stuff we're excited about around the Lawas, and that's 12 kilometers away from Upper Antino. So, when we think about scale, scope, it certainly has that the feel or footprint. I think that would go along with the other big guys in country, Marion, Rosebell, similar sort of model. It's not one giant super pit. It's a number of pits over a property, and I think we're rubbing shoulders with the same crowd there.
So in terms of putting out a resource, you have no interest in that. There's no timeline. It's not even a contemplation, at this point.
No, it's not. Realistically, we're still seeing lots of reaction from in terms of the share price, etc., from putting out good results. Mm-hmm. There's still a ton of upside with new exploration targets. Lower Antino, for instance. There's Parbo we haven't even touched yet. It's a bit further out to the east. But there's just a lot of upside there, and I think there's a fear, or there's a risk anyway, of kneecapping ourselves if you put something out too early in a story, mm-hmm. and that's really not the plan. We've got 60,000, 65,000 meters planned for 2025, and that we're fully financed for. I think we get through that, and from there, I imagine these things don't go on forever. We probably will find a limit to the mineralization at Upper Antino, for example, and at that point we can start working backwards and thinking about how much drilling is going to be necessary to prove up a resource in that part of it. But I think there's a big opportunity for a global resource as a first pass, and to bring that to the market, I think is probably the best case scenario for shareholders overall.
Okay. So you have 3 rigs. You said you're going to add a 4th shortly. Where are the rigs? Where's the focus right now across the property? And how many holes do you have pending assays at this point in time?
Yeah, so we've got a drill rig at Upper Antino, a drill rig at Buese, and then the third one is at Lower Antino. We'll have the fourth rig going. We'll probably get a hole or two in by the end of the year, but fully going in January is really what we're shooting for. Focus right now is all three of those locations. We've probably got about 25 holes total pending at the moment, but we've got some assays yet to come in for all of those. So right now, as far as results, I mean, I expect, or we will have results out for each of those three areas by the end of the year as separate releases. So people can expect that for sure. As far as from now to the end of the year catalysts. Yeah, there's a couple of other, smaller targets further afield that we probably will bump down to with the rig. We have that flexibility because they're our own, and we really do kind of control how it works on the ground. So we probably will put a couple of exploration holes in there too, just for hopefully a little added excitement.
If anybody has any questions for Colin Padget, CEO of Founders Metals, please ask to speak, and I'll call on you. We'll do a live Q&A if anybody has a question. So you guys have an option on this project. Can you tell us about the stages of that and where you're at right now on the Antino Gold Project?
Yeah, so it's a 3-stage option agreement. We're through the first stage of that, which is 51% of the concession, or the company holding the concessions. So we've crossed that threshold. We're on track right now based on our current spend and what we've got projected to hit stage 2 around, I'd say, kind of April, May, but first half of 2025 for sure, to have that crossed off. That takes us to 70%. At that point, it comes down to a bit of math, but ultimately we can either stop the option portion of things there and convert into, or go into a joint venture agreement with the optionors, which are a Surinamese family that have had the concessions for quite some time. We can either do that right away, or we have the option to spend another 10 million US on the property and earn another 5% through that mechanism.
I see. Is there a royalty on the project?
The way that that's structured is basically once we go into the joint venture piece, it's a fully participating joint venture. So if there's not that kind of proportional contribution from the other side, then they can be diluted down to 10%. That final 10% then is convertible. Can either remain as a free carry, or it can convert to a 3% NSR.
I see. Okay.
Yeah.
Makes sense. So, I mean, a lot of things have gone really well for Founders. I mean, quite frankly, you're one of the best stories in the junior mining sector the last couple of years. You might be maybe in the running for the best story of 2024. What are your biggest challenges? Like, which areas of your operations, or even at the corporate level, are the most challenging for the company?
Yeah, I mean, on the ground, or logistically and all of that, I mean, I'd say 6 months ago or a year ago, maybe there was more of that. At this point, we've really got things pretty dialed in on site, and it really does work like it's a pretty smooth machine at this point. In terms of the corporate level, I think challenges really are, a bit keeping up with the pace of communicating things. I mean, we've done a pretty good job to this point, and want to continue to do a good job of keeping, all of our shareholders informed as regularly as we possibly can. That was a big part of our success early on, was just very regular drill results and that. But that's something we want to continue, but it certainly takes a lot of work. And then after that, it's a bit of the corporate governance and moving that side of the equation forward. The project has grown a lot, the company's grown a lot, and so now we've already kind of started this process. I mean, brought Chris Taylor on very recently as a new board member, and we'll be looking to add some other new members to the board here as well. As the company evolves, so does the board, and bring people in with skill sets that are specifically tuned in to Antino and the jurisdiction, etc.
I think that's really important. What you just said, the company is now a bigger company. It's growing up. It's going to the next level or tier of gold mining companies, in the world. And so, you have to evolve the management team as well. So yeah, I did see that board addition. Can you tell us a little bit about how that came about, how he chose to come aboard?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I hadn't met or even really spoken to Chris before, I guess be kind of early September this year, but we share a number of kind of larger shareholders. The Great Bear story, a number of their large shareholders are, similar shareholders and in founders. And I think that there were a number of people that were kind of poking him and saying, "Hey, have you seen this one?" And eventually we got connected. And I think he first described it as maybe a bit of a benevolent conspiracy, that there were so many people that had reached out before we had ever actually spoken ourselves, he and I, and said, have a look. So I think a big part of Chris coming on board, though, was him, I think, being pretty impressed with just where we're at in terms of the technical understanding on the ground, of the deposit and of the geology there. I don't think that's maybe necessarily that common, with how long we've been in it. But as I said at the start, it's a big product. Just honestly having the right people on the team. Pascal, our VPX, has done a fantastic job since day one, and then supported by Vincent, on the structural geology side. It's really gone very well, and I think he saw that. So he came on board very shortly after that.
Did he come? Did he contemplate maybe the chairman role, or just he wanted to be a board member?
Yeah, no, it was never really a conversation about chairman. It was board member, but then certainly offered to be as involved as we'd like him to be, and I'd certainly like him to be involved. And he's already been a lot of help in terms of bouncing ideas off of and just getting some perspective on some of these bigger ticket items, like bringing B2 on, for example. That was a lot of conversation around that.
Great. So with Founders now 300 million market cap in Canada, is it time to go to the TSX big board? Is it time to go to the US on the NYSE, Wall Street?
That question comes up actually quite a bit. I don't know, like on the TSX upgrade, look, Great Bear is probably a good example. If you play your cards right, maybe you never need to, or at least there's not a lot of benefit getting there. The New York Stock Exchange or NASDAQ piece, certainly there's a lot of room for growth in the US market. I'd say that's one of our biggest gaps right now, particularly, retail and just people hearing the story, understanding the story. I think, those exchanges could probably help with that, but there's a lot of cost that goes along with that. It's quite a bit of, I think, extra work on our side. So it takes quite a bit of time, I think, to understand whether or not that's really worth it. And a bit of it does come down to the timing. How do we see this evolving? And yeah,
I think a lot of juniors in Canada right now are having that same contemplation and weighing the pros and cons. I can think of a few other ones that I've spoken to the CEOs that are in the 300, 400, 500, $1 million market cap area that could go to the NYSE or the NASDAQ, but they're also weighing the added cost, they have to hire some lawyers in the U.S. Obviously, there's more accounting involved in it. It's a little bit of a heavier lift, but as you said, there's also an opportunity there to expand your shareholder base. So that's something to consider. So final two questions, and we'll wrap up unless somebody has a question for Colin in the audience. I know many of your eager shareholders are waiting on more results. So when do you think we might get another results piece of news out? And which zone at Antino are you most jacked up about right now?
Well, I mean, to answer the first question, so we closed the bought deal part of the transaction there. That's sorted. We are in the very close to wrapping up the B2 piece because it's two separate transactions. So once we have the private placement with B2 closed, after that we'll have results come out. So I would expect to see some results probably next week, is what we're shooting for. But it all comes following closing that deal there. Yeah, place where am I most excited? I'm just because it's very new, but it's certainly exciting. Pretty excited about the Lower Antino stuff. We've always kind of been eyeballing this 3 kilometer by 900 meter augur anomaly over there with grades up to 50 grams, and said, well, hey, that looks pretty serious. And you look at it compared to Upper Antino, there's a lot of size there. So been excited about the drilling and getting there and actually testing things. So be keen to get some more results in and understand what's really there. Buese continues to excite me on the just the scale potential side of things. I mean, anyone who's been through our deck or seen any of the talks that I've done where I've spun around in the drone imagery, seeing the the level of work that's happened there in the past, and one of our first drill holes went through 15 meters of tailings before we ever actually got into new stuff. And so there's a long history of drilling there, or sorry, mining there, that really points to something significant. And then Froyo hasn't stopped impressing, amazing, surprising even our geos at this point, and continues to do so. So excited about all of them. I think in terms of timeline, we're going to get some stuff out on Lower Antino first, and then it will be a little bit dependent on timing of the various results as to whether it's Buese or Upper Antino that follows that.
Perfect. Colin, exactly 30 minutes. Thank you so much for this conversation. I look forward to the results out in the next couple of weeks and continuing to follow Founders. Cheers.
Yeah, great. Thanks a lot. Appreciate it.